the Pioneer viewers, how are you doing? I hope you're all healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we're here with the new part of our daily map report. The war between the Russian army and the Ukrainian army is very close to leaving behind its second year. In recent days, we see that the war is largely locked. There is no change in the front line except for limited and very small changes. Both the Russian army's attempts to advance and the Ukrainian army's attempts to advance are stalled. Intense clashes continue on the Donetsk and the Kherson front lines. We also see that a large movement has started on the Zaporijya front line. On the other hand, efforts are underway to fortify the Ukrainian army. In recent days, the Ukrainian army needs support to break the increasing Russian pressure. The clashes continue. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we are making an intense effort to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. This support, I'm sure, will make us very pleased. If you're ready, let's begin the Pioneer reports. Let's start our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Kherson front line. First, let's see the Kherson front line on the map. Now, there are three areas where the fighting has intensified: Poima, Pechenovka, and Krinky. We have been covering the fighting in the direction of Krinky in our map reports for a long time. The Ukrainian Marines in this area created a very difficult situation for the Russian troops. The Ukrainian Marines are really well trained. We know that most of the bridgeheads have a Ukrainian Marine Corps force operating in the direction of Krinky. According to the latest reports, again in the direction of Krinky, Ukrainian infantry units went on offensive, supported by the Ukrainian artillery units. Intensive attacks did not yield results. According to the information we have received from local sources, the counter-clashes are still quite furious. However, it does not seem that there has been a borderline change in the region yet. As we mentioned at the beginning of our report, the war is largely locked. We see a situation similar to these statements here. Ukrainian troops are trying to expand their dominance on the eastern bank of the Dnieper River on the bridgeheads. We believe that airstrikes are the only force that can change the situation in the region. As you know, the Ukrainian army has a request to the world powers for the F-16 fighter jets. Its request is met and the Ukrainian army starts to actively use F-16 fighter jets on the front line. The situation will change significantly in favor of the Ukrainian army. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in Antoniivka, Taginka, Lviv, Olgiivka, and Bersivlav. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Russian armed forces deployed in Olopristan, Alyoshki, Poima, Pechenovka, Podstepnoe, Kasakams, and Novaya Kakhovka. Let's continue our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Zaporijya front line. As you know, the calmness on the Zaporijya front line was broken in recent days. According to the latest reports, we are faced with the biggest activity after this calm. According to the latest reports, Russian troops launched an attack on Ukrainian troops west of the Robotny. Russian artillery units were also active during this attack. However, the attacks do not seem to have the character of changing the demarcation line. The Ukrainian Defense Forces managed to repel the Russian armed forces. In addition, the Russian armed forces launched an offensive to break the Ukrainian pressure on the direction of Novoprokopivka and Verbov, which have been under Ukrainian pressure for a long time. Here, the aim of the Russian army was to break the lines of attacks of the Ukrainian troops. However, they did not succeed. The Ukrainian armed forces managed to repel the attacks of the Russian armed forces and to a large extent managed to protect their lines of the attacks. In the clashes in the direction of Verbov and Novoprokopivka, we see that there were no borderline changes. Let's continue by looking at the latest developments regarding the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian armed forces positions in Plavini, Kamenka, Stepny, Patyahatki, Malaya Sherbyanka, and Novodanilovka, Malaya Tokmakcha, Charvony, Goliapol, and Malinokov. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in Nesteryanka, Novoprokopovka, Verbov, Novofedorovka, and Novopokrovka. We continue our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. On the Donetsk front line, after heavy artillery and aviation work, the Russian armed forces conducted offensive operations near Novomykhailovka in Marinka, near Pervomovsky and Severnoye in the industrial zone on the southeastern outskirts of Avdiivka. During these offensive operations, there were fierce clashes. However, we cannot say for the time being that there were any borderline changes. From the fork of Yasinovata, east of Kamenka, Avdiivka coking plant, Stepnoy, Novobakhmutovka, and Karmelinka, the Russian armed forces carried out offensive operations against Ukrainian troops. Let us point this way. Along the demarcation line on the Donetsk front line, Russian troops are trying the Ukrainian army at every point. Let's show this area on the map as follows. Let's draw a line from the northwestern direction of Horlivka to the Wohilda region. This area is about 75 kilometers long. In other words, along this long distance of 75 kilometers, Russian troops attacked Ukrainian troops. The Ukrainian armed forces should be congratulated here. Indeed, the Ukrainian armed forces, which put up a great resistance along this long front line, did not allow the Russian troops to advance. It should also be noted that the Russian army is carrying out its attacks here accompanied by airstrikes and artillery attacks. This is the area where the Russian army has the most intense firepower, and this is how we can see that the Ukrainian defense here is successful. Let's also mention the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian armed forces stations in Heroliivka, Ubeda, Krasnohorivka, Nevelsky, Pervosmaisky, Severnoye, and Tonek, and Avdiivka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted the positions of the Russian armed forces in the vicinity of Opitny, Spartak, Vodyany, Kruta, Balka, Karminka, Vesle, and Novobakhmutovka. The Bakhmut front line has not seen much change or newsworthy events in recent days. There are only attacks by Russian troops in the direction of Klishchivka. However, these attacks are not important enough to be taken into account. Therefore, we can say that there are only low-intensity clashes near Klishchivka. What do you think? Do you think Ukrainian troops will be able to get F-16 fighter jets for use on the Kherson front line? How do you assess the Ukrainian defenses along the Donetsk front line? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.